host Glenys Gassman, and today's guest is Rana Kordahi. Kordahi, have I pronounced that right?
Kordahi, Kordahi, whatever.
Kordahi.
It does not matter. It doesn't matter.
Rana is a sales coach. She's an NLP practitioner. She's a writer. She's done TED Talks, and she is top 10 female sales coach 2020, voted by Yahoo Finance. It's amazing credentials. She's also the founder of the Selling Academy and determined to make everyone fall in love with selling. Oh, that's amazing. You know, just alone, that's your why. Look, for the past 10 years, Rana's trained and coached thousands of sales and non-sales people in the art of sales, influence, mindset and personal development, including consultants in some of the big top 4 consulting firms, as well as multinationals. So Rana is always up for something exciting, I know, and we're going to be talking to her a little bit about that. She has a self-guided, self-paced sales program that's helped many people in the art of sales close large deals and just get ahead in the business world. So with all that being said, Rana, welcome to the G Factor Show.
Thank you so much for this, the lovely introduction, Glenys.
You're welcome. And you're coming to us from Sydney.
In Sydney.
And the weather's perfect there today?
Not really. It's actually been raining for 2 weeks straight. So,
oh, wow. Yeah, we are in that La Nina effect. I know we're getting it up on the eastern seaboard here. I'm on the Gold Coast, and it's rainy one day and then windy the next at the moment. So we're sort of getting that as well. Look, thank you for joining me here today. And I just want to know, I want to kick the show off with, what are you working on right now? And what are you excited about?
So, I'm constantly working on sales program and sales training material, but currently I'm working on a program which is for employment services. So it's for employment practitioners that struggle to pick up the phone and go out and market their job seekers. So in Australia and also in Canada, UK and New Zealand, we have something called employment services, which is the people that are on welfare. And so they get sent to employment service providers that are paid and funded by the government. So a lot of the employment consultants, they are quite compassionate. They like helping people, so they help them with their job seeking skills, their resumes, interviews. But one of their job duties is picking up the phone or going out there and cold canvassing, so selling their job seekers, marketing them to employers. And so I've got a program called, it's a sales program for those specific employment consultants. So I've been working on that. I've been marketing it. I've had a lot of signups, and that's what I'm excited about.
Oh, that's right. That sounds really great. Employment services. And of course, there's just so much need for all of that over here right now, isn't there? There's so much work here, and we need some great people to be filling those roles. I totally get that. So, in talking about all of that, because things have changed in the last 2 years, and especially in the small business world, sales, used to be face to face. And then, with what's been happening around the world with the pandemic and things, people have been in lockdown or not doing the same things as what they normally do. So it's almost like sales has got to be screen to screen almost. Do you know what I mean? So can you just share with me, what you've experienced around, change in selling? Because people are more going online, buying things from online as well. And, for the average small business owner out there, what's been the major hiccups, do you feel, of them moving from what they were doing 2 years ago to how are they going to manage all of this online?
So, sales has been changing in the past 10 years since social media came about, starting with, and even before when there's websites. So in the past, businesses had to really rely on the traditional marketing, such as television commercials, radio, the big billboards in the newspapers. And many times business owners, they were what you call spraying and praying.
Yeah.
And I met a few business owners even 3 years ago that did not even have a Facebook page. And this is even before COVID or pandemic. and they were still trying to do things the old way. So they were paying lots of money for, and don't get me wrong, like some of them were successful when they went out to the business networking events and they networked and they had word of mouth. But things are moving so fast. So you could have a competitor coming along and doing what you're doing, going to the business chamber and networking and paying for the traditional marketing, but also they're using social media. So when the pandemic came, a lot of those businesses were now suddenly forced to use Zoom. There were people that were forced to use Zoom to get on the phone. So I had a lot of salespeople that I was working with that were going out door knocking, and they never picked up the phone before or didn't even have a LinkedIn account. So suddenly they're like, I don't know how to make cold calls. I didn't even know LinkedIn. I have this profile. I haven't used it. So now suddenly they're being forced to do things that a lot of their competitors were doing even before the pandemic. Also, sales has changed a lot because customers know a lot more about you than what you think. They've already, by the time you've sent them that email or you've spoken to them or you've reached out to them, they've done all the research on you. They've seen your social media pages. They've checked out your website. They've checked out your social media, personal pages. Even it could be your Facebook with your family going on that trip. So they know a lot more about you. They're more educated. So it's good and bad. So if you have good social media presence with good reviews and good social proof, it could help you get into this, because the sales process, obviously, it's that building know, like, trust. So you can actually have a lot of people knowing you, liking you, and trusting you even before sometimes you even go out and meet them face to face. And I've had that experience too. So I don't know if that was your exact question.
Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of went on a side tangent.
It's perfect. I think, there's been such a big impact on sales across the board through the pandemic because people had to pivot, change, do all these things differently than what they have done. So it has impacted small businesses out there, and you're right. A lot more people are online. They've had to have a look at what are they posting. Is this a good reflection of who they are as a business person? Because people can look at you on your Facebook profile and see all your family and do things like that. So you got to be careful about the privacy. Tell me about like the cold calling. Cold calling is something that like people hate, right? That seems to be to me, I find with business owners or business coaches that I'm working with is that picking up the phone or talking to people that that they don't know is really outside people's comfort zones. Tell us a little bit about your psychology, your sales psychology, on how you get business owners around that. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's quite understandable to pick up the phone and call an unknown stranger. Even traditional salespeople don't like doing that. They prefer going out there and door knocking or even using LinkedIn, just hiding behind their laptop. So, because you do get a lot of rejection. However, what I say in business to business, when you are selling to businesses, cold calling is one of the touch points. It's not the only sales strategy. So if you're just relying on cold calling and that's all you're doing, you're not going to be successful. If all you're relying is on cold emails, you're not going to be as successful. If all you're relying on is door knocking. So it's one of the strategies to use it in a cadence. So as we know in sales and marketing, people that have a business, they would know that people take time to know, like, trust you. And many times it takes many touch points for people to know who you are. So you could always start your touch point with a cold call, making an introduction. You don't have to sell anything on that cold call, on the first call. Or you could start your touch point with an email or a door knock and then follow up with a call. Now, why a call? Because obviously, other than face-to-face, the next best thing is voice-to-voice. That's why Clubhouse is so popular at the moment, because people are connected. We don't see anything other than your photo. We don't even see you moving. There's no camera or anything on Clubhouse. However, it's just your voice, and people are connecting with other people's voices because we can hear their tonality, their pitch, their voice. There's a lot of emotion in that voice. Now, of course, you're going to annoy a lot of people. There's a lot of people that you're calling that are going to say, I don't have an interest, or, piss off. But it's, I don't want to say it's a number, because obviously you have to make smart calls, educated calls, but it's also a numbers game. The more, I always tell people, okay, you don't want to make a cold call. Your competitor is calling your prospects and customers right now. as you are trying to not make a call. And it's something I have to remind myself, because sometimes I don't want to pick up the phone, and it's not something that I always want to do. There are days where I don't want to talk to people, but I always remember, okay, my competitor right now is picking up the phone and talking to people, and that's picking up the phone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great little reminder to have sitting up in front of your computer, isn't it? You know, if you have to do an hour's worth of calls or something like that, your competitor is doing this. So yeah, just sort of
absolutely. And the biggest mistake people do in business to business is approach the cold call like a telemarketing call. You're not a telemarketer. You're not trying to close right there. It's not a one call close, because especially when you're selling high ticket items, it's not about, and okay, we can say cold call, but many times it's better to make warm calls or educators calls or calls, follow-up calls, right? But sometimes it starts with a cold call, but you don't have to look at it like it's a cold call. It could be a cold call to create awareness about what you're doing. It could be a cold call to find out more information. It could be a cold call to create a relationship or a touch point. So it's just a conversation
or something like that. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm a big believer of what I call the buyer's journey. So you know, like it's probably of the stats used to be, I'm not sure what it is now, but around about 5% of people will be the ones who are the early adopters, who'll be the ones that will want to buy straight away. You know, they know exactly what they want. They've probably been looking for a long time, and then all of a sudden you come along, 5% will probably buy straight away. 30% are not interested. All right. So you've got the other, 35% in there, and they need to be put on what I call a buyer's journey. They've got to know, like, and trust you, and they've got to be educated about what you're actually offering and what the benefits are. And so many people get into talking about features rather than benefits, and then just having a process, an automatic process, around what the buyer's journey possibly could be. But I'm not sure if you found this, Rana, or not, but people just don't take the time. They feel that my product is great, my service is great, you should buy from me, and I'm going to tell you all about it. And if you've got that problem, well, then you should buy from me, right? But it doesn't work that way, right? You've got to actually you got to firstly find out, do they have a problem? Can you solve it? And then you've got to educate them so that they make an educated decision. They have to make the decision. It's like right now, I believe the buyer has been in control for probably 20 years. Prior to that, back in the 80s, and I'm showing my age now, you know, that's when the seller had control. You know, there wasn't the internet wasn't available, and, you know, there wasn't a lot of information out there. So the seller had control. And
that's true.
All the Britannica encyclopedia people, you know, they would knock on the door and have a bit of a brief conversation with the mum, find out how many kids they got, what their interests are, and then say, oh, by the way, chapter 22 in this encyclopedia has got all about how to become an engineer. So they buy it. You know what I mean? Like wasn't a lot of competition, but these days, because of the competition, we've got to put the ball back in the other person's court and create what I call a buyer's journey. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the buyer's journey and what you said is a brilliant concept to always remember, that there are some people, they're not ready to buy now. And I love how you said about the encyclopedia, because that was the only Google you had. Right now, as I'm getting a cold call, I'm researching about the company as I'm speaking to that person in real time. You know,
that's
and
great.
if I don't like what I see, if there's bad reviews, you know, I've had a lot of people calling me up, and I found out there was scam. They said there's scam, and I'm like, no, sorry. I was almost gonna have that conversation about some, I don't know, membership for traveling or something like that.
Yeah. So that's really great. You know, what do you check, and what do you recommend for business owners to check if they get a call from someone? And so and business owners who are listening here today, you know, what you could ensure that you have, you know, online, you know, perfecto, that's 100% representation of who you are. What would you check if somebody just called you up? What would you check into?
So obviously I'll check firstly the company name, especially when they're trying to sell me a product or a service. And many times I even Google who they are, and I check them out on LinkedIn. So that's the first thing. So I always say, make sure that your LinkedIn profile obviously shows your brand, your personal brand. So you don't have to obviously be posting every day, but if you have just a few posts reflecting that you are the authority in the industry and you are quite knowledgeable, and you can create that trust, that trust, just through a few posts that people can resonate with. And not everyone's going to resonate with you, by the way. So some people might not resonate with who you are. Some people might look at your photo and go, oh, this person reminds me of my crazy ex-partner or whatever. So it's okay. Not everyone's your customer. And the worst thing you can do is actually try and be everything for everyone.
Yes. Yeah. You've got to be, I say to coaches, because I work with coaches, I say to coaches, you got to, who you're talking to and who you're putting your time into, you really want to make sure you could work with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And most coaches are really filled up with about 15 to 20 clients at any one time, whether it's one-on-one or group or anything like that. So, I mean, there's plenty to go around. You don't have to pick every single person,
Yeah.
You can be selective, especially if you're great, and you're good at what you do. Yeah,
definitely. Because that word of mouth, I mean, eventually you don't even make cold calls when you're good, because it's just the word of mouth and your reputation. But when you're starting out, the cold calling and that door knocking and the cold outreach is very important, because people are like, who are you? I don't know who you are. So you have to prove yourself, and you have to be more proactive as well.
Yeah. And that's for probably new business, new people going out. Yeah. But after a while, you do a good job, you provide the great customer service, all that just gets referrals coming in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about your psychology. When you work with people, you've got some sales psychology. What's the biggest thing that people have to get over? What's the biggest hurdle?
So the biggest hurdle is how they perceive sales and their self-belief. So number one is I help them identify the difference between a pushy salesperson, the 1990s Wolf of Wall Street salesperson, and the ethical, consultative, trusted advisor. And I get them to acknowledge that this is, if they're not that, that's where they want to be. The person that is listening, asking good questions, thinking about the person, how can I help this person? And really putting that customer on the front of mind, and how can they solve that person's problem? And understanding that, being pushy or trying to turn a no into a yes when someone's like a 100% no is not going to get you closer to selling. No. And so that's number one. Number one is identify the difference between pushy and consultative. And number two is understanding that confidence is the number one thing in order for you to sell. So there are a few things that I help people with their confidence. So number one is to identify the impact that they're making in the customer's life. Okay, so what is the pain that you're solving? And this is the deep psychological pain. It doesn't have to be just, okay, like my software is fast. It could be my software is going to help this person have a stress-free job and a stress-free life, and go home and have a good marriage or good health.
Yes.
So it's that impact that you're making. Always think about that. Number two is you have to expect rejection is part of it. Number three is you have to change the story that you're telling yourself, about selling, about the customer, about your product. So it's that, so you could be like, most people I'm not good at selling, or most people don't like me. Or so you have to change the conversation that you're having with yourself every day, from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep, and not just about selling, about everything, because how you are in your own personal life. So if you're the type of person that believes that, you're not good enough to even be in a relationship, or you're not good enough to ask for a favor, you're not going to be able to sell, because at the end of the day, you don't think you're worthy of people's time and favors. So you're not going to be able to sell. So that's number three. Number four is the physiology. So as we know, changing the way you sit, the way you breathe, the way you move your body, because that affects your mental state. And number five is developing a level of mastery, which is being good at what you do, and also making sure that the product and service that you're selling is up. So if you're a coach, continue doing courses, continue working on yourself, because you are the product. And take care of your health, eat healthy, because at the end of the day, if you're sick, you're not going to be able to show up with focus for your customer. So you are the product, and you have to develop a level of mastery with yourself, being so good, being healthy, being focused, and at the same time with educating yourself continuously and getting that experience So you can actually have that self-belief, because my self-belief, I've always had self-belief, but it didn't really heighten or go to the maximum until I had customers coming back to me saying, thank you so much. I now have no fear of picking up the phone. I've made sales. I've done this. And it was seeing the results and how I was able to impact their life, that I was able to then speak about what I'm doing and what I'm offering with a lot more conviction as well. Absolutely. And that takes time. Not on your first day, your first 6 months, it's not going to be brilliant, but you have to continue improving yourself as well.
Yeah, I always say it's like you've got to be double-headed about it. It's like, you have to, talk positive. You've got to believe in yourself. And, and that negative mindset likes to come in and dominate and take over, but you've got to keep doing that until you get the results. And look, I remember going to it was a seminar, and I was speaking to about 400 odd business coaches, and it was probably about 45, 50 minutes. And then we had colored pieces of paper on the table that they could all write down, some really nice acknowledgement about what it was that they got from your session. And then you, as the person speaking, got all of those given to you. I got so many little colored bits of paper that I made a collage. Wow. It was probably about the fourth or fifth time that I was speaking. It was back in 2010. And the very first time I spoke, Rana, I hyperventilated. It's like, it was terrible. I was a shy accountant sitting behind like a computer, not talking to anyone, because everyone came to me. But then when I shifted my focus to growth coaching and coaching these businesses, then I knew I had to get out of myself, right? So I literally had to change completely. And these little notes, I made a collage of it. I've still got them somewhere. I haven't, and I covered the whole corkboard. I don't know if you can go to Officeworks and buy these corkboards, and I covered the whole corkboard, and I had it sitting up there in front of me every day of what people actually felt when I was talking and speaking to them. And that gave me that confidence, and that it just boosted it along, because, we're working, there's a lot of coaches, they all work by themselves.
Yeah.
And they have to deal with that mindset and mentality every morning when they wake up. So we need something to keep boosting ourselves up to.
Yeah. And that's so important. And I mean, you could have that board, and then one day, I love that story. And one day you could have that one negative feedback that could knock you back and be like, oh, I'm not good enough. This person's not happy, whatever. But then you have to always go back to that board and remember, okay, yes, maybe I wasn't great then, or I was off that day. It's okay, but that's not 98 or 99% of my time I've produced positive results. Because what happens is I've seen people also, they have 99% success rate. One person comes and might leave them a bad review or leaves them a bad comment, but because they're not resilient enough and they don't have that strategy, that go back to that board, go back to those, write down all your achievements, they get knocked off center. And that could, sometimes they can recover in a week, but there are a few people that may never recover from that.
Yeah, exactly. They take it on as if it's the truth, when really it's, I think, business growth, human growth it goes in ebbs and flows,
Exactly.
And sometimes we're up and we're on a high, and then other times, we're down under and we're cruising a little bit. But if we're on an upward trajectory all the time, then we actually can start seeing that those little times when we start dipping down, it's more of a learning platform. I love calling them learning platforms.
I like that.
We can't all be perfect. No one's perfect. There isn't anything that's perfect out there, right?
No.
So, what if, we can take on one thing about our performance that could actually help us for the next time. And that's the people, and that's most coaches that I work with, by the way. They start seeing that there was one thing that they could have done a bit differently to get a different result. And okay, I'll take that on, but it's not the end of the world. And then they can always clean it up anyway afterwards. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's not you all the time.
That's it. It's like one little percentage. And everyone's got a different perception as well. Yeah, no, I love it. So tell me about your program that you've got on there. What is it? Sales for non-salesy people. It's a self-paced program. Tell us a little bit about that.
So sales for non-sales people, the inspiration came about when I was working in different organizations, and I saw that a lot of people, and even working with some small businesses, that one of the reasons why they weren't successful, they were technically brilliant, they were good at the engineering side, the creating a software side, they were good at accountants, but then it came to the business side and they just did not have that confidence or did not have the sales frameworks, methodologies. So I realized there's a lot of people out there that one component is missing, is the selling. So so that came about because I saw there's a huge gap. And so selling for non-sales support it helps a lot of people that are not in the traditional sales jobs. Maybe they own a small business, or maybe they've been put into a job where their manager's like, well, you have to make these cold calls, you have to go out and network. I saw that when I was working at KPMG, a lot of people that were directors to partners were having to go out there and network, or having to deal with large engagements where they had to upsell or keep the customers or the projects, the people, the stakeholders in the projects happy. So that teaches them everything from how to ask good questions, ethical selling, how to overcome objections, how to even go out there and cold call, prospect, the mindset, personal branding, how to use LinkedIn, neuro-linguistic programming. So there's a lot there.
And how do they contact you for that? They just go to a URL page and then they contact you? Or do you want them to call you?
It's all this. So the course is it's not that expensive. It's $97. You have lifetime access, and it's a self-paced course. So there's about 30 modules, and every module has an action plan, an implementation plan. And it's not even, and there's a lot of reading. It's a video, and you watch that video, you do the implementation. A lot of the success comes from the implementation and the blueprint that we give to people as well.
Yeah, it's everything. Every success is about implementation. It's like knowing makes no difference. We've got to actually implement as much as we possibly can. And that's where I see successes as well, and that's why people need a coach, because you've got to implement, you've got to keep on track, because if you don't do that, you're not going to get a result. And then it's just a waste. You've got all this information and you're not doing anything with it. So fantastic. So to contact you about that, it's going off to your website, sales for non-salesy people?
So it's actually, there's a few websites, but I'll give them the one, the latest one, salesnonsalespeople.com. So salesnonsalespeople.com, or they can just find me on LinkedIn. That's my name. They can try and connect with me or send me a message, or they can just reach out to me at Rana at thesellingacademy.net.
Sellingacademy.net.
Yeah, not .com.net, because a lot of people send me at .com and it doesn't go through.
No, that's right. Now, listen, the G factor is a unique set of skills, experiences, disciplines that you have to create the edge in business success, right? And when you look back at everything that you have done from way back to when you started for now, and where you are today, what's the one skill, discipline that you believe as being the most important to your success? So what is your G factor?
So, I mean, I could easily say sales, but let me say something different. I mean, sales is definitely, that's the thing that kept me going. Being able to connect with a lot of people and being able to influence a lot of people to listen to my message. But the thing that kept me going was not giving up, because in my first year, I didn't make enough money. I did not. And what I did is I actually got second jobs, part-time jobs or full-time jobs, but I kept my business going. So the second and third year, I actually used to take annual leave just to go and deliver workshops and training for my customers. And then it just compounded. I built my reputation, and I ended up being able to then quit my job. So a lot of times people, they start a business, they're like, it's going to work out the first year. But even if it doesn't work out, don't close your website, don't close your ABN. Even if you have, 2 hours in the night, on the weekend, if you can take a day off, work part-time, continue that business going. If you believe in it, and if you believe that it's a good offering or product, because unless you have a lot of money and financial backing, a lot of times it's not going to just take off. It happens sometimes, but rarely it's just going to take off within the first year. So you need some financial backing, whether it's a lot of savings or it's a part-time or full-time job that you have on the side.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is resilience is like, you never, ever give up, just keep going, because, I mean, how many times did Thomas Edison, have a crack at, what he did, so it really is, it's about keep going, tweaking it, because the markets change, their problems change, everything changes. So we've got to keep changing. And eventually, as you know, you can give up your job and, you can create the business like you've created the Sales Academy, and, working with some high level people and how to achieve, some big dollars in business. Would you say that sales has got to come first before marketing?
I think it depends. If you're selling to business, then I think sales is number one, because a lot of times those key decision makers, they can't be identified just through marketing strategy. Because sometimes it's like 5-6 decision makers in the company. So you have to know how to pick up the phone, get their attention, or get to those people, reach them. If it's a business to consumer and you're selling a low cost, high volume, like for example, my selling for non-salespeople, it needs marketing more than sales. I'm not going to pick up the phone over $97 and I'm trying to reach everybody. I'm not trying to reach key decision makers. It could be the mum, the dad, the CEO, or that small business owner, right? Yeah. So it just depends who I'm selling to.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
When I'm selling my $10,000 sales training to an organization, learning development or HR, I don't use a lot of marketing. I do but I use a lot of selling.
Yeah. I often believe that, for the market that I'm working with, it's definitely, you've got to get your sales prowess right first.
Yeah.
Because when you do market, or when you do go out, network, speak, whatever you're doing to get people interested in you, you don't want to burn those leads anyway. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? So I just think I totally agree with you with a low cost type, sales program. You want more marketing.
Yeah.
You want more volume, but into a target market. But when it comes to the business, B2B or something like that, we really need to get our sales prowess working. Well, look, it's been lovely speaking with you today and learning a little bit about what you do and how you do it. I know you've got a lot of techniques and things behind you, that has put you into a state of authority and an expert in this area. So for everyone listening today, if you're having a little bit of problem with your sales or you want some help with that, reach out to Rana. So it's either on LinkedIn, or you could go on to thesalesacademy.net. Or it's Rana at thesalesacademy.net, yeah. Or
the Selling Academy.
Selling Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, and she'll be able to help you with that and start getting some leverage with your sales, yes?
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate it as well. So
yeah, no, you're welcome. It's been great having a chat with you, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week.
Likewise. You too, Glenys. Thank you.
All righty. And happy holidays. It's coming up.
Yes.
I'll just stop the recording.